Hey, this is PJ with CLK Supplies, and I have Chris with me today from River City Locksmith. Chris, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, PJ.
Yeah, you got it. So, I wanted to have a conversation with Chris as being a mobile locksmith and what that looks like today in 2020. And, you know, he's someone who started his business, and I'll let him get into all the details here in a few moments. But I'm really excited to hopefully have him share some of his knowledge and his experience and what it's like to start a locksmithing business in today's world. So Chris, once again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Man. Yeah, it's a sincere pleasure. Hopefully we can get a lot of topics covered and definitely go over, how things have changed and where things are kind of heading now and the very large gamut that, mobile guys face nowadays.
Absolutely. So let's start off. So how did you get into locksmithing?
About 10 years ago, I was a project manager for a very large national retailer. Don't want to give any names on that one. Traveling all around the northern, western United States, new stores, remodels, and everything. And I was looking for something a little bit more different. Just be able to be at home more often. And a good buddy of mine was doing a lot of contract work. Home warranty companies and insurance companies, lockouts, repairs, and stuff like that. And I had some technical background with small electronics, soldering, circuit boards, arcade machines. I had a whole lot of really hands-on experiences and kind of growing up in that when I was young with my first jobs and so forth. So I had a really good understanding on small mechanics. And he says, you'd be perfect for this. And eventually turned into, I love this, which turned into, I just lit that fire of, I want to learn more, which turned into, my own business.
Okay, interesting. So how long have you actually been in business for as a locksmith?
For myself, I've been in business for 6 years, and prior to that, it was all training and learning, working with other people, and but yeah, it's been a very encouraging 6 years, and I'm looking forward for many more.
Well, that's awesome, man. The amount of businesses in general that make it 6 years isn't a lot, and so my hat's off to you for
Thank you.
Doing it. So, and I should have mentioned you're out of Spokane, Washington.
Yep,
right?
The good old Pacific Northwest here.
Absolutely. Now, so what type of locksmithing do you do? Like residential, commercial, automotive?
I try to do a little bit of everything, and having a good, well-rounded technical set of skills is important. And the reason I say that is there are days I get no automotive calls, and I'll do nothing but strictly lock changes. And there's days I'll be, I'll get 4 or 5 calls for antique locks, old mortises, pre-1920s buildings that need locks serviced, and they kind of be, brought back to life. And knowing how those work and the functions and, how to really service those, all those things come into play. There's days I will go an entire weekend with nothing but commercial calls. So it's a little bit of everything, and I think that's really done very well. If you are specifically a commercial guy, and if you're specifically an automotive guy, having those great skill sets and all the advanced stuff's really good. But I try to do a little bit of everything, just really depending on what my customers' needs are.
Okay, so you'll do automotive, residential, commercial.
Yep.
Okay. Wow, and lockouts.
Oh yeah, lockouts. Not so many more as I used to, but as your business grows and you kind of have that solid client base, you're not really taking those emergency calls anymore. Some people may say that's a young man's game, getting up at 3 a.m. to do those, but
sure,
you get away from those after a while.
Okay. How many years do you think you were taking a lot more of those?
Oh gosh, I'd definitely say the first half of being in my own business, it was a lot of the 2 a.m., 5 a.m. calls, a lot of stuff in the winter time with, people losing their keys in the snow, key snapping and, frozen locks.
Sure.
I try to do that as much as I can now, but, you do 7, 8, 9, 10 appointments a day, your body just says no more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you do 24 hours?
I try to the best of my ability. And when I say that is I will continue running calls until a certain point, but if the phone rings at 3 o'clock and my body says you just cannot go any further, I may miss those ones. I try to also really restrict winter after hours calls, because either it's going to be a life-threatening situation where people are trapped outside, and it's obviously problematic. Up here we get negative 10, 15, 20 degrees sometimes.
Sure. Compared
to, hey, I have a lock that it's kind of acting funny. Well, it's not always something that's important at 4 a.m. and it's below 20 degrees outside,
Absolutely.
So it's kind of conditional on the season, but I definitely try to be as available as I can, as often as I can.
Okay. Now, with you being do you have any employees?
No, it's just me, 100%.
Okay.
Which has its benefits and also has its faults. When you succeed, You get that big project, you get that bid in there, you get that, that big client taken care of, 5-story apartment building. It's great. You hand those keys off. It feels so good. It feels fantastic. It was all on you. You built that client up. You serviced it. 100% of it's yours, and it feels amazing. Now, the failures, when those happen, you have no one else to blame but yourself. So the highs are high and the lows are low.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. Now, over the years, what have you found to be your sweet spot? And what I mean by that is, locksmithing, especially when you're doing residential, commercial, automotive, lockouts, there's such a wide variety of skills that's needed, right? And services that you're providing.
Yep.
I'm guessing over time you've kind of developed what type of jobs you're wanting to do at the same time that are also really profitable.
Absolutely.
Right? I think there's the saying, it's hard to be something to everyone.
Yep.
Right? Yep. And I think in the locksmithing world, from my perspective in 2020, there's a lot more people that have kind of shifted from doing everything, and they are just automotive.
A little more specialized.
Yeah, more specialized. And so I'm really curious with you, you've been able to keep up on all your skills and provide good customer service. But what have you found to be what you enjoy doing the most and is the most profitable?
I think that question can really be based on your background. If you have experience with automotive, being that you were a mechanic or you worked in a mechanic shop, you have an understanding of ignition systems and key systems, pursuing automotive is definitely in your best interest because you already have a baseline understanding. If you've worked in facility maintenance and things like that, you have an understanding of egress and fire codes and life codes. You're very familiar with that. What I found for me to be the most profitable, and I didn't really expect it to be that much until I really got a system down and worked out very well, was residential. And a lot of guys will. That's usually the expression I get from is a lot of guys will see, residential, and if you have the right tools and you have the right knowledge and experience and equipment and technique and skill set there, you can really knock out a lot of residential work, whether it's installs, repairs, rekeys, upgrades, very quickly. And if you compare that to an automotive key, you could be there for 20, 30, 40, 50. Obviously running the issue is even longer on automotive. But the amount of range you're going to see in residential, not a whole lot. We've been looking at the same bore on doors now for the last 50, 60 years almost.
That's a good point.
So this, if you take that old Schlage D that hasn't been serviced in 20 years, that the next lock you put in there, unless it's like a 5-inch backset or something, and even then there's resources for that, that new lock's going to fit in there pretty snug with some minor adjustments. So you can you can turn them out pretty quickly. And I found that residential for me has been a good moneymaker.
Awesome.
Especially spring, summer, depending on the season. Winter is usually a lot of emergency work, but spring, summer, fall, new homeowners, people coming into the area, people coming leaving. Oh yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, how do you rise to the occasion as far as when a lot of customers with residential locks being the least expensive? Mm-hmm. Do you ever get customers that are being like, hey, I need to replace this lock, or your cost of rekeying? Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, I could go down to the hardware store and get new locks. Do you run into that at all?
Absolutely. There's definitely, just in any business, whether it's electrical, plumbing, automotive, body paint, whatever, there's always those customers that are just going to want the cheapest cost. And that's okay. And it's part of that being available for them and knowing that you can still provide that service quickly. You're in, you're out, you're still making your money, moving on to the next one. There are those people that want those cheap locks. They just want, hey, this old, $5 lock's busted. I just want another $5 lock. That's fine. And then knowing that those people are still going to be there. You got steakhouses at $100 a plate, and you have dollar store. It's being able to operate in that range, and knowing that you may not be able to sell them on a brand new M-Tech handle set, but you can still provide the service for them.
Okay. Okay. And so when you're on a job and it goes from being like a rekey to a, this lock's actually broke, it's not worth for me to repair it, and, you tell them whatever your lock price is.
Yes.
How does that go if they have resistance to it?
That is a good question. It's not something that's brought up very often. People know that if a part's broken, it needs to be replaced. But yes, I do keep a good range of hardware. I'm not stocking $400 Italian handle sets in my van, but at the same time, I do have some of the the contractor style, just the really cheap ones, because I know those customers exist. I may not get any if all profit on it, but this person may need services later. They may need something for their car. They may need something for their business. So it's knowing that you've built a relationship with them, even if it's over a $5 knob.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So going forward, what do you envision locksmithing looks like for you?
For me, I think I'm going to continue to just really expand that rounded skill set. And there are things I'm really interested in doing, like vault work's really cool. I mean, you see these really ornate locks, and at the same time, I really love working with the antique stuff, because where we live at, we have a lot of really old buildings, and I've had some really good chances to work on some of these turn-of-the-century properties and historic properties, and I just love that stuff. The same way a car guy loves those old 1940s style cars and the old F100 series, and they love that. But yes, they'll go and work on a modern car. So I mean, for me, I really look forward to a lot of the new stuff, and I think that as technology progresses right now, you're going to see a little bit more of a divide between automotive and commercial, and residential has its ups and downs with smart locks and stuff coming out, but that gap's only widening more. If you were to go back 40, 50 years, a locksmith had 1, 2 maybe key machines, small inventory of keys. Now it's this programmer, that programmer, this cloner, this type of tool, this type of router, this, all these different templates. So as security changes with technology, it really has divided those segments between residential, automotive, and commercial, I think.
Okay. Interesting. Now, for someone who's thinking about starting their own mobile locksmithing business, right? I think I said earlier, being a mobile locksmith, I think is the new norm, right? I mean, I think 30 years ago, establishing a lock shop, I mean, is that something that you consider?
Absolutely. And if you look at a normal metro area, usually mobile guys will outnumber the shops at a pretty good number and figure there. Yep. And it's one of those things with internet being the way it is, a lot of it's touch and go service. Hey, you make a phone call and you have all the information you need at your hands with your smartphone. So there's not really a whole lot of need for people to go into shops, and we're seeing more and more of that is, search engines change, and they dominate definitely the way people shop and get these types of services. When people are looking into a mobile business, it has a lot of advantages. Your overhead is extremely low. You're not paying for a facility, but at the same time, it's your mobile business. Your service vehicle is only XYZ in shape and size, so you can only fit so much in there. Okay. And you may miss out on that one person coming in that wants a key made, and they may be a property manager with 100 properties. You never know.
Sure.
So you do play a little give and take with that, but we are seeing a lot more of the older locksmiths that have shops that are closing up. There's not, something we talked about earlier, there's not a whole lot of excitement for someone to jump back into that position. It's usually the mobile's kind of the desired business model right now.
Absolutely. And so if you were getting ready to start your own locksmithing business again, are there some certain steps that you would want to take at first that now 6 years later?
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to have a pretty good grasp on SEO, marketing, web development, web design, some social media, and I think that now the way that internet businesses are structured, whether it's if you're selling cupcakes, if you're a locksmith, if you build and sell tree houses,
sure.
It all comes down to funneling those customers towards you. You can be, and I know several locksmiths that are fantastic. They can do some amazing things, but they have no grasp on how to use search engines. Now, that's not the end all be all. We shouldn't always be reliant on them, but if you're starting out without a saturated market or a huge client base, you're going to be really focusing on getting your name out there, and that's unfortunately in 2020 is through search engines.
Okay. So you think something, if you're going to start your own locksmithing business, to make sure that you have a website.
You need to be really on the ball when it comes to your SEO, knowing how to present yourself out there correctly. I mean, you can go out there and beat the bushes and hand out cards all day, but ultimately, at the end, people, when they cold call, they're going to be looking for this information. They want to see this type of business. you're looking at what, a 5-second impression window. If they
Yeah.
like you, they call you. If they don't, they move to the next one.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Any other tips or advice you would have for someone starting out?
Know your strengths. Know that you cannot learn and do everything, and sometimes even in a lifetime in this industry. There's more, and I'm learning all the time, and it's something that the industry has not gone anywhere in the last 1,000 years, and it probably won't be going anywhere else in the next 1,000 years. Learning to adapt, knowing that, hey, I used to make keys for 1980s cars once upon a time. Those cars are gone. What's going on now? Where's the industry heading? If you're an automotive guy, what are cars going to be looking like in 10, 15 years? If you're a commercial guy, how big is tech going to play a role for access control? And a lot of people now are using smartphones for access to buildings. How can you integrate these things? If you're residential, what's good, what's new? Smart locks have been a major phenomenon in the last 5-10 years now, and they're only getting better and stronger and cheaper, and eventually, I don't see they're going to take over the market, but eventually they will have a very strong foothold in what we see in our homes.
Okay, so with the smart locks, do you find customers, like, are you providing a lot of them, or do you find customers have bought them at maybe a big box store and they want you to install them?
We see a little bit of both. There are definitely customers. I will go out for a simple lockout. Hey, young couples locked out of their house. They just bought it. They didn't realize this door didn't have a key to it. You unlock them. They say, hey, we've been looking in the smart locks. And that kind of opens up that conversation. And, that's something that we do get a good amount of questions, at least from, where I'm at all the time, is how can we, what's the process? Can you provide one? But there are people that do have their own. And I hate to say it, but the big box stores ones are okay. But we do get a lot of the really oddball ones from Amazon, eBay, and all the different internet places. And Lord knows where they come from. I mean, they could be, a clone of a clone of a clone, and that's one thing you have to be really careful about, because you could be opening up a product and installing something you don't really know its history. Is this company even in business anymore? And or how safe is it?
What if it doesn't work in a week?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so you have someone. Let's say you come over to my house to do a rekey, and I'm like, hey, Chris, surprise. I got this lock here from eBay. Yeah. That I got it for, $12, this electronic lock that I can hook up to my phone through an app. Can you put it on for me and show me how to use it?
Yeah.
While you do that, what do you...
That's tricky, and I do get those calls occasionally. Every now and then I'll get a customer. We have some portions of Spokane that have some very older buildings. A lot of that stuff's case mortises, and then I'll get a customer that says, "Hey, I bought this nice new shiny smart lock. It does anything. It has alarms and all these web functions. I want you to install it on this door." I'm like, "Okay, your door is 3 inches thick, and it has a mortise in it that hasn't been touched or lubricated in 80 years. It can be done, but customers only realize that solution that you saw on a YouTube ad or you saw on social media posts for this product you really liked does not always work and orientate correctly with the type of door you have. I think it's important that people know that yes, those solutions are there, but more importantly, it's work with a professional. Even if you don't hire them, work with a professional. Hey, I have this type of lock, I have this type of door, I have this type of situation, and I see people that put high-end, high-security deadbolts on a door that has a 4-foot window on it. And from a security standpoint, that's great, but that window can easily be broken into, and it's one thing, hey, that's cool, but you have to think a couple steps ahead of that.
Yeah, I've always thought that back when I was doing locksmithing work, and I'd install a deadbolt and I'd get ready to do it, and it would be like a hollow core door. I'm like, if you're trying to keep a kid out, a toddler, that it'll work. Yeah. But as far as security goes,
and that's, I think the internet and just the way information is shared nowadays has really kind of pulled people to think that, not say that they know more, but the information's out there much more than it used to be. So the professional's opinion usually comes second to what they see and know so far from the amount of information that's out there. Not that that's horrible, but it definitely has caused a lot more mistakes and hiccups than we like to see for some jobs.
Sure. Sure. Now, to kind of close this out here, I just want to touch on, 6 years ago you started. I'm sure you really hit the ground running.
Yep.
And a question that I've always had is, So like before you talked about you had a job, right? You
Yep.
probably would show up every day.
Yep.
The end of the day you go home. Well, as a mobile locksmith, you don't have anywhere to show up to start your day.
Nope.
Right? So I'm sure part of that is awesome.
Yeah, it has its benefits.
And I'm sure part of it, you can kind of get into a funk if that phone's not ringing, right?
Yep.
How do you navigate those waters?
There's peaks and there's valleys, just like any industry, and it really depends on what your skill set is, and knowing that it may be slow right now, it may be busy here, and it goes back to that rounded skill set. Like I was saying, I may have. Weekends are really popular for automotive. There's a lot of guys that do automotive that don't work weekends, after hours, so I do tend to get a little bit more that way.
Okay.
And it's being able to say, wintertime I got more of this, summertime I got more of this, and being able to adapt. Now the phone not ringing entirely, there are lulls, just like anything. There's busy days and there's slow days, and taking advantage of those is really important. It's one of the things about being an independent guy is, when you have downtime, you have to take advantage of it. You have to wholly take advantage of it. You have inventory, you have parts, you have ordering, you have follow-up, you have so many things you can be doing. And if you are not pushing yourself to do that, then I guarantee you the next guy that wants to be, better than you will definitely do it.
Sure.
So it's a matter of, you are your own boss, you are your own accountant, HR, PR department. And if you don't have an understanding of that, then, it's not saying it's not ever going to happen, but you will have to learn the hard way.
Okay. Now, was it pretty weird for you at the very beginning? 6 years ago when you're like, hey, I usually get up at 6 a.m. and get ready and go to work, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, hey, I'm right where I need to be right now.
When I first got started and I was doing every single call, I was racing to them. I was very expedient in my attitude. There was a lot of times, especially in the winter, I would be doing 15, 20, 25 lockouts a day because I was taking every single one as quickly as I could. I'd fall asleep in my favorite chair with my boots on, almost like clockwork. I'd wake up 3 a.m, oh, the phone's ringing, just get up and walk out the door. And I was burning the candle at both ends, and it takes a toll. It takes a massive toll. On your health, your life, just your just everything. And I've learned to really step away from that. Like if it's an emergency, that's fine. Pricing, we can discuss that, but you have to really separate where you want to be and the life you're trying to have at the same time. It's not all those calls come in. They will always be there. And that's something that took me 6 years to learn, is that you cannot just be afraid that your phone will not ring, and take advantage of the time when it doesn't.
Okay, so that leads me to my last question, which is something I've seen a lot of, growing up in the locksmithing business with my dad, and for so many years, he did all the jobs, right? Yeah. He had a store, but he did all the jobs. I used to ride with him as a kid, and over the time, it can wear you down. Right? It can wear you down, that constant, when that phone's ringing, do you take it? Do you not? And so I'm curious what type of advice you could give someone who maybe finds themselves working too much, maybe getting burnt out, right? But they want to spend more time with their family.
Absolutely.
Right? Both of us are similar ages. We have families.
Absolutely.
And how do you balance that? How do you balance the two of those? Like your ambition of being a businessman who also wants to take care of your customers.
Sure.
At the same time, you have a family at home.
It's hard and it's easy at the same time. And I know that sounds strange, but when you're starting out, you want every client, you want every customer, you want every single sale, because you want to make a name for yourself. You want that reputation. You want to just drive. As I've gone through things over the years here, it's you have to set boundaries. You have to set hard boundaries for yourself. And when I say that is, hey, I'm going to go to the lake with my kids this weekend. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you get that sweet call, hey, I need a key made for my car. It's 9 a.m. on a Saturday, and it's an open, they'll pay whatever you want. You have to know, not to even answer that phone at that time of day if you're not going to be around. But it's setting hard boundaries and realizing that your kids are going to grow up so fast. They're young now. They're going to be teenagers. They're going to be gone. And if you're going to spend their entire youth driving across the county for those lockouts or those keys or whatever it is you're going to be doing, it's something that you have to learn to deal with as you get older. And it's really important to know that if that's what you want to do, there are consequences. You will burn out. There is no question about it. If you think you can do it, you will burn out. And those hard boundaries are really important. A, for the sanctity of your family, because you owe it to them to be in their lives. And B, it's you can only use a blade so often until it dulls, and then you have to sharpen it, and that you have to take that time away. And that's, again, maybe a hard lesson that some of these mobile guys have to learn.
Absolutely.
It's not, the calls aren't going anywhere. They will always be there. You do your job correctly, your clients will keep coming back. And it's a slow step at a time, but once it's there, it's great.
Awesome, man. Well, it sounds like you have a pretty good grip on it nowadays,
right, yeah.
And so, that's awesome.
There's things that come with experience and age and wisdom, and again, unfortunately, sometimes it takes a few making bad decisions leads to making good decisions sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about at all?
For the mobile aspect of it, it's just it's important to again, set boundaries, know your strengths and weaknesses, be available when you should be, and really know your market. That's also something too. I think that a lot of mobile guys that jump in. Knowing your market's really important. If I were to talk to a locksmith, say in Connecticut, he may say, "Hey, I only run across these specific locks. I run across Sargent and and Yale and stuff." And then you come over here to where we are. We see a lot of different keyways and a lot of different lock styles. So knowing your market, knowing your customers are needing and wanting all the time. What type of vehicles? We don't see a ton of European vehicles up here, so that's not always something that a lot of guys jump into right away. Whereas if you are living somewhere that has a different climate, a different culture, a different type of customer out there, that's just as important as setting your own boundaries and working on your business too.
Okay. Great. Well, hey, thank you for sharing very much.
Absolutely, PJ.
And thanks for coming on. Now, if anyone would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
We have a lovely Instagram. It's River City Lock and Key. We also have our website, rivercitylockandkey.com, and you can also reach me on Facebook, River City Locksmith.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on, and thank you everyone for taking the time and listening to this. We'll see you next time.